Hey everybody, it is never too early to talk about the 2015 Top 10, so I am joined by Spencer Hall, just in a marvelous hat as always, and of course Ryan Nanni, both of SB Nation. And let's start. Let's just get into the top 10 that we have on SBNation.com. Number 10, Georgia Tech. Finished the season strong. Any reason that you feel poorly, feel great about Georgia Tech? Spencer, take it.
I feel good about a returning offensive line, a strong quarterback coming back, and the fact that their system does not change year to year. Remember, consistency in the staffing leads to consistency on the field. So I like that a lot with Georgia Tech.
Yes. They still will have to replace a couple of skill position players on offense, a couple of players on defense, but it's kind of like, was there anybody on the Georgia Tech defense you said, oh, that person is irreplaceable?
No, that was not the reason why they won in 2014. Next, Georgia, a team that does count on defense to a certain extent. Second year of Jeremy Pruitt.
We're such haters. Georgia Tech beats Georgia, and we won't put them above them.
Nope.
This is true.
Bias.
This is where we are. Nick Chubb is that good where there's a lot of benefit of the doubt there. They lose a lot on defense, but offensively they've recruited quite well, and they go with that power rushing game. We expect good things, and an improved and new SEC East.
Yeah, this feels like the spot Georgia holds by reason of some sort of obscure constitutional amendment.
Yes.
They won't be here necessarily at the end of the year, but that doesn't really matter. Has it ever?
No. And the thing that we're hoping on here is that Jeremy Pruitt will fully congeal this defense into some sort of delicious confection.
Yep.
Remember, Pruitt is that important. He was part of a great Florida State defense. And if you'll notice, since he's left Alabama, that secondary's fallen apart. That was what he was in charge of.
Yes.
And hopefully, like, he's that important. He's the cog that makes this run.
It helps if you don't think too hard about Brian Schottenheimer running a college offense.
Just run the ball and punt. Run the ball and punt, and that's probably 9 wins in the SEC East.
Next, USC, a team that will almost assuredly be overrated come August, but as it stands now, they have a returning, experienced, very good quarterback, have recruited extremely well, and whatever the case is, will almost assuredly, again, be healthier than they were in 2014.
Yeah, I know one of your big things about Cody Kessler was that he was really good against teams that were not.
Right.
But that said, the fact that he can show those flashes, and even in the games where he played better competition, he never looked just terrible.
Sure.
He just didn't look quite as dominant.
And the thing is, even if we're going to consider him a good player, which he is, good players improve with time, with maturation, even though with the loss of Nelson Aguilar, Juju Smith back, the defense, the young defense gets a little bit older and more mature. There are pieces in place to be very successful.
Yeah, and yet we consistently underestimate 2 factors here. One, that the Pac-12 is this mired dogfight that eventually sucks everyone under and gives you 2 losses. And in addition to that, he's not called 10-win Sark.
No, he's not.
That's not the nickname.
No, he is not. Okay, next, Michigan State, a team that is going through their own losses, both of offensive skill players, important defenders, although Shalik Calhoun back, and an interesting schedule in the Big Ten, but Michigan State, the Pat Narduzzi loss, more important than everybody I just named, but we're still believing them as a top 10 team.
Yeah?
Okay, next team.
This is where we're honest and just say that you're kind of betting on Connor Cook, D'Antonio's ability to manage a roster, and the consistency.
And for the past 3 years, they've been developed very nicely.
They have. They've done a great job of developing talent.
Yes.
And because this is a preseason top 10, it's a hedge.
It is a hedge.
And it's also looking at them this year. They lost so much talent to the draft entering this year that you sort of said, can they reload? And they managed to do that reasonably well.
Yeah.
And they're beginning to get that benefit of the doubt. Next, Ole Miss, a team that returns almost everybody important on offense other than Dr. Bo. And defense, that front seven is going to be healthier than the way that they finished out the season, and a terrific year to be a pretty good defense returning with the quarterbacks in the SEC West.
Yeah, it's weird to think that Dr. Bo is sort of a key loss for this Ole Miss team, but some of his abilities in those big games, you could say, a lesser quarterback would not have been able to tilt those games in Ole Miss's direction. That said, looking at the last game of the season, it was really hard to say, he's really the engine that makes this particular ship dive right into the
Remember,
ship.
not putting Ole Miss here, looking at the talent that they have and the overall performance of their defense and the run game throughout the year, you would have to do this and say that losing Bo Wallace makes them worse, which is a really hard thing to do. So when you say, like, oh, this was ludicrous putting Ole Miss this high, try it. try not to look at them and a healthy Kendichi and that defense and not put them here.
All right, next, Baylor. This is something I don't think we need to talk about a ton because of that quarterback development benefit of the doubt. They've recruited exceptionally well in the offensive skill positions, and Sean Oakman is back. And a good time with Texas and Oklahoma both going through a ton of changes in the offseason to be a good team in the Big 12.
Yeah, Katie Cannon just is going to get even. It feels like he's going to keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
And you're right. This is sort of a power vacuum in the Big 12 moment where a lot of with the exception of one team we're going to talk about a little later on, a lot of teams are going through transitions that either we expected or maybe they weren't expecting right now.
You notice in the top 10, by the way, we're picking a lot of consistencies, right?
Yes.
You're picking people and teams that have shown a pattern of easy success, right?
We're picking the BLTs.
We are picking the BLTs.
Yeah.
We are picking the solid, you can't screw up a BLT at any restaurant kind of teams. And Baylor has become one of those.
Absolutely.
That's a sentence that 5 years ago would have sounded like rank absurdity.
Yes.
But you know they're going to score points. You know they have more talent than they used to. And you know they play a style of football that in the Big 12 at least is going to be the kind that keeps you in a game until the last down.
Yeah.
Yes, a team that totally fits that description as well to a much larger degree. Alabama at 4. Obviously quarterback uncertainty is huge. The way they finished out their season. Blake Sims probably didn't finish out the year in an ideal way. It could be a young person. It could be Jacob Coker. We don't know. But Alabama returning enough even with a lot of huge losses to the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think that we can avoid the cliche of reloading.
That's what they are.
Because they have as much talent. The question here is whether Lane Kiffin is going to wear out his welcome in 2 years or 3 years.
Yes.
Because he's not long and he's in charge of developing the talent on that offense.
Yes.
And as you saw, you can exploit that. They're an offense that can be messed with and haven't played well on the road. And in addition to that, I think the defense is as much of a question as the offense, particularly in the secondary, because they no longer shut down passing offenses. They give up scads of yards. So this is a 4-pick based pretty much on talent alone, and on Nick Saban will get that right, maybe.
This is true. All right, moving right along. Oregon losing the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback Marcus Mariota, but returning a ton. Obviously, they've recruited really, really well on both sides of the ball under Mark Helfrich. Hard to imagine not giving them the benefit of the doubt, but if there's anything that would sink them, it would be a down year at quarterback.
Well, I think Royce Freeman was so impressive this year, and the Oregon running game outside of Mariota overall, that you feel like there's a bit of a safety net for the new guy to come in and not have it all on his shoulders right away. So that's why I think you can lose somebody as impressive as Marcus Mariota and not ring the fire alarm right away.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you can have a good vote of faith in this team because they're a running and defense team.
Yeah.
And everything else that happens on top of that is just a bonus.
Right. All right, let's speed it up with the last two teams just because they have the fewest questions. TCU returns just about everybody, was playoff worthy. Trevon Boykin, huge step forward in that offense in 2014. Hard to argue with them as a top 2 team. And Ohio State, your thoughts? Very young and make a championship run. Where do you have any problems with Ohio State at all on that team with them being number 1?
No, I don't have any problems whatsoever.
No.
And most certainly, they will live up to number 1 expectations because that's what Ohio State does sometimes. Thank you very much for watching. Let's continue in the comments below. And quickly, who is that team right outside of the top 25 in 2014 that you could see sneaking in?
Tennessee loses 1 starter, Josh Dobbs, astronaut superstar.
I like that.
Yeah.
Outside the top 25?
Memphis. Justin,
shoot.
Memphis. Sneak into that 15 area.
That feels bad. Wow.
Dig in there like a termite.
You're
going to have to spray.
Man, you're going to have to call so many people because they're in the walls. They're not coming out.
It is a strange world that we live in. I like Texas A&M. John Chavis can get them to just an average defense, and that offense is going to be good. Texas A&M could sneak in there, but let's keep this discussion going in the comments. We'll see you soon.